you. Happy New Year 2021. Welcome to a Mexican Crossing Lines. We're just getting started. We're going to play a little music and then we'll start our show. Don't want to miss it. Share it out. We're broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and maybe even Twitch if that's working tonight. I don't know. I haven't tested that out yet. So here we are. Stick around. You don't want to miss this. Welcome to everybody. Feel free to chat. Feel free to super chat. It's up to you what you do. Invite your friends. We got a lot to talk about. Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp. And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Tonight is the first night of us returning from our vacation. I don't know
what they call it, covidation or
covidation. Yeah, I mean, it was like a combination of holidays and guys. 2020 has been a rough year. 2021 has been a really bumpy start to the new year, and we needed to take some time. We've had a lot of losses in our family due to COVID. There are 8 people gone in my family at last count. Extended family and immediate family, we've lost 8 people, and that does not include any friends. Good evening to all of my followers and friends. I see Octavio has joined us, my little brother.
Oh, really?
Isn't that weird? I get to call you little brother.
Yeah, he's pretty small.
Yeah, they're not so little anymore. I haven't seen most of my family since December of 2019. It seems like
a year ago.
But it's true. We've been gone for about a month. We desperately needed that time because there's been so many losses. The most recent losses I have learned of is my cousin Medium's mother-in-law passed due to COVID. We also lost the father of my cousin Raul's wife, Laura's parent died. Lost the dad due to COVID. And this is after losing 5 of our immediate family members, uncles, aunts, cousins, this last year. It was a lot to process. I think we needed time to just heal and be with family, and that's what we did over the holiday. The handling of the COVID virus by our president, Donald J. Trump. It is one of the things that has broken my heart the most, but it is not the only mistake that I saw this president making that really turned my stomach. And I'll have to explain why that is. Tonight, I'm going to reflect on how we got to this coup in our country. How did we get to the point where there was a large number of people in our country that felt that it was right to overthrow the government? And I'm going to explain the law to you. I'm going to tell you what sedition and insurrection are. We're going to discuss the letter from the Joint Chiefs of Staff that signaled to the world, that signaled to the country, no, the military is not with Donald J. Trump. No, the military never was, because you'll recall they made a statement prior to this one saying the military has no place in elections. Also, no to the coup, no to the insurrection we see now and any coming forward. We are not going to be on the side of the insurrectionist and the traitor. We, the military, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are making it known to anyone plotting a coup, we are not with you. All of that tonight on a Mexican Crossing Lines. Buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a hard discussion, but as always, this Mexican Crossing Lines is going to bring you the truth and the receipts. First, though, I want to welcome everyone back. I want to thank everyone for being here. I am ready to have this discussion or debate, whatever you want to do. I have my knowledge of the law and the Constitution, so let's get ready for it. First, I want to thank everyone and have Duke tell you how you can get a hold of us.
Yeah, and keep calm, people. You know, a lot of people are very emotional. I can understand that because there's been so much misinformation, so much disinformation, so much lies, and people just don't know which way is up. We are KPPP LP 88.1 Fargo-Moorhead Radio. We're streaming on Facebook. You can find us at 88.1 Fargo-Moorhead Radio. You can also go to YouTube under Duke 1517 and find us streaming there. You can you can follow Cindy on her page by searching at Cindy Gomez-Schempp. You can find me by sending me an email, Duke at kpppfm.com and Cindy at kpppfm.com. You can also call our message line, 701-566-0917, and leave a message up to 3 minutes. Sometimes we put them on the air. Sometimes we'd like to hear your lovely voice, so you can go ahead and do that. If you'd like to support our station, we're a nonprofit, community-run radio station. We're still operating through COVID. We've been doing it. We're on 24 hours a day. You can go to kpppfm.com/donate. Make a donation. It's tax deductible. It'd have to go into your taxes next year. But, hold on to your receipts. When we send it, we'll give you some receipts.
Now, as you know, I am a paralegal. I have a background in the law. I saw from the moment that the president lost the election, and he did lose the election, everyone immediately said, give the president time to make his legal appeals in the different swing states that he brought lawsuits to, with the Supreme Court, in the appeals courts, in the circuit courts. And guess what? I was watching all of those legal challenges from the very beginning, and you can go back to my interviews on local radio and television here in the Fargo-Moorhead region, saying to every person, arguing with my local TV and radio personalities, colleagues, that they got it wrong. And I had a lot of very, very angry people telling me that I needed to shut up about the election results and these lawsuits. And how dare I call into question or call the practice of law by people like Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood and Rudy Giuliani Mickey Mouse. And the reason that I called many of these actions in the court Mickey Mouse or 101 mistakes or stupid or ridiculous is because they are. They were. Did you read them? I did. These people made procedural mistakes that would make any lawyer embarrassed. But above all, the lawyers for the president. The fact that he did not have an expert in election law at the head of his legal team from the onset made it clear to me that the president did not have adequate representation. The mistakes, then the kind of mistakes being made at every level throughout these lawsuits, which I was reading, let me know that the president did not have the kind of representation that would allow him to prevail in these lawsuits. And the fact of the matter is that what I saw these lawyers doing, I mean, besides the fact that it was clear that they were not alleging fraud, they were specifically asked a number of times, are you alleging fraud? And they said no. Meanwhile, on television and on radio and anywhere else they would be seen, these same lawyers were saying fraud, 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 fraud. When you are doing that, and people do it all the time, I'm not saying that it's rare for lawyers to say one thing on TV and another in the courtroom. But the layperson, our audience, that doesn't know the difference between theater and the practice of law in a courtroom might get confused, might be confused. So I told folks, don't listen to what the lawyers are saying on the TV. Listen to what they say to a judge, because the bar, pun intended, is much higher in a courtroom. First and foremost, in order to practice the law as an officer of the court, whether you're a clerk, a paralegal like myself, a lawyer, or a judge, you are required to take an oath. Like the oath that's taken by members of Congress, like the oath that's taken by the president, to uphold the law, to follow procedure, and not to lie, never to lie to a court. Whether that is through your mouth hole or on paper, you do not bring in anything to the court that could be a lie, that you didn't check and verify and make absolutely 100% sure was true. Whether it's an affidavit, a statement, a document, what have you. These lawyers were violating the law of ethics, of procedures, of their oaths. And now they are being disbarred. And I said they will likely be sanctioned, investigated, disbarred. Because it didn't happen right away, because they continue to walk around free without handcuffs on them and doing interviews on the television, as many of them still are doing, because many of them hadn't been sued by Dominion Software for $1 billion, because many of them still hadn't lost their jobs, their professional careers at universities, hadn't been boycotted. They thought they made you believe they were telling the truth. They thought they were getting away with it. Everything catches up to you, especially the law and the truth. A lie will travel the world 100 times before the truth even gets its shoes on. But the truth will always eventually come out and will prevail. And that is exactly what's happening. And it was for this very reason that I, despite the fact that I was watching people lie about the election results, lie about their possibilities in court, lie about the electors being slated and what they could do and what they were going to be able to do on January 6th, I still believed and trusted in my heart of hearts that the power of the Constitution, that the rules of procedure, the rules of law, the rules of ethics, that the oaths that people take in this country, whether you're a cop, whether you're a paralegal, whether you are a U.S. senator or the president of the United States, were still true. They still held. They still mattered and would still be followed. And I was right. They held. They were followed, but just barely. The events of a week ago on January 6th broke my heart and almost broke my faith in these United States of America, in our Constitution, and in our democracy. They almost broke my belief in the power of this country with their treason, with their sedition, with their civil war. But they didn't win. They didn't win. It was the reason that when we were analyzing what might be going on with all of the seditious talk, the lies, the insurrection that was brewing on the internet, it was the reason why I got into a fight with Duke.
Oh, yeah.
Because you started suggesting that this coup, that these insurrectors might show up and try to stop the electors being counted. And I almost lost my mind.
Like I said, people need to calm down, everybody. What I was doing is I was basically just reading the Constitution. I was like, let's read about this electoral college. People are, I'm always very interested in what are we going to try to change in the Constitution, what you have to do to change it. And so I was reading the part about where they would have to convene on, the 6th, and they'd go through each state, but a Congress person and a senator could jointly, in writing, object, and that they would resign or retire for 2 hours and have their own sessions. And I thought, wow, I think they're going to try this and slow things down. I don't know if they'll have enough votes. They have to have all of Congress basically object, and there's other things. They could stall it up to a number of days and then not make a decision, and then make the vice president, stuff like that. And so I just speaking it out loud, like, wow, this is interesting. I never knew this. I never really looked at it, because normally in a presidential election, there's a winner and a loser, and just things go on. They go into Congress and they get sworn in, and that's a new administration. It's like normal politics, but this is no normal politics that have happened for the past 4 years. So I was just looking that up, and then Cindy said, yeah, you could go ahead and join all those conspiracy theorists, and I thought, well, no, I didn't say much after that about it. I just shut up about it. And look what happened.
The reason why I became so upset with you was because the only people that were beating the drum of the possibility of overcoming the law, the Constitution, the oaths that people have taken, the rules of procedure, and everything else are the Q anonymous quacks out there, the Q anonymous led conspiracy theorist quacks out there that believed that the law could be subverted, and I could not stand to hear it coming out of the mouth of my own husband. I couldn't stand to hear it. I was like, you too? How can you even repeat that nonsense? How can you even believe that it's possible? And you know what? I didn't realize how embedded the lies became, how vast the conspiracy was, how far it reached, and how many people it infected. I've seen QAnon. They've been around for a long time. They were present at Standing Rock. They tried to come after us in the sense that they tried to get cozy with us. They tried to get me involved with Q, and I pushed Q away as far as I possibly could, and anyone associated with that quackery, with that snake oil, with those lies. The reality, folks, is this. And I know you have a lot of questions. I'm not going to be able to explain all of the answers in detail today. There's a lot of things that came together in the perfect storm that caused laid the groundwork or created the environment for this coup attempt to happen. It began with the fact that a lot of people in America had already been seeded with the QAnonymous lies. You will notice that many different platforms, most notably Twitter, have removed the accounts mostly of QAnon-connected conspiracy theorists. The reason for that is not because Facebook and Twitter and all of these platforms, the CEOs have such love for our country and because they're concerned about the well-being, given that their platforms were used to plan insurrection and destroy our government. No, it is because they may be liable and they may be held accountable for their role in knowing that that stuff was going on in their platforms and turning the other way. There may be a time when you will see lawsuits of people who had their brains washed by QAnonymous conspiracy theories that ended up being part of this insurrection and or being arrested, having their lives destroyed and or being killed, whose families will go after Twitter, Facebook, and anyone else that allowed this being seeded like a cancer into the brains of so many Americans, unsuspecting Americans, that the CEOs of these companies did know to be dangerous and even deadly, and they did nothing. And I hope that they are sued into oblivion for their dereliction in doing what they should have done by moderating and policing themselves. Quickly, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but I want to address some of the things you guys are asking me in the comments, so I will. Parler did not disappear because they're censoring conservatives. Parler disappeared because after the CEOs of these companies realized the amount of damages, and believe me, the federal government is going, who can we sue for all of the damage caused by this coup attempt? All of the billions and billions and billions of dollars it's going to cost. In some cases, the damages were to irreplaceable history that was destroyed at our country's capital. Who is going to pay for that damage? And you know who they're looking at? You know who the deep pockets? Do you know who was dragged into testify before Congress on a number of occasions about the kinds of things that were going on their platforms, and they still didn't fix it and they still didn't do anything? It's these big tech companies. They got lots of splaining to do. And Parler, which was up and coming and new, was allowing more and more of the kinds of things that would get a company in trouble. They basically unleashed everything. No rules, no regulations. Anybody, it's a free-for-all. Cats, sleeping with dogs, anything is allowed. And when those tech companies decided they were going to mitigate their damages and remove all of the conspiracy theorist accounts, purge the accounts that were calling for insurrection and violence, and get any coup planning off of their platforms, they immediately turned to Parler, their biggest, their worst, the worst actor in all of these different tech companies in terms of what was allowed. And they said, you need to fix it yesterday. And Parler said, no, we won't. we can't. Whoops, we fell down. We can't do it in time. And they said, okay, then bye-bye. It wasn't that they were just snatched off the internet. They were given an ultimatum. Clean up the crap or get the hell out of here. And they said, we'll do what we want. Thank you very much. And then we'll whine and moan on television that you took away our free speech rights. Folks, most lay people don't have a clue what the Constitution is, what the Constitution says, or why they should be worried about participating in the lies that led to this insurrection.
And that's right. That's why I keep on saying, just have a read. I mean, just look at it, read it. I see ignorant, misinformed comments right in their stream right here. And it's like, just look the stuff up and read it. Read some of the history of it. And then it'll make a lot more sense. But if you just rely on, Alex Jones to tell you what's going on and, you're getting these filtered ideas that are full of conspiracy and you're like, yeah, and you start believing that without even checking it out. I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice, also our community. There's
a lot of people that, if we're passing out blame, there's a lot of it to go around. There's a lot of finger pointing that can be done here. Everybody is very upset that the president incited this insurrection. I believe that the reason we got to this place is because of the lies told to the president by unscrupulous lawyers. The conspiracy theories that were allowed to circulate and repeated by people in power and influence that none of the tech companies either stopped or corrected or fact-checked or anything. There is a combination of conspiracy, of negligence, of dereliction, and of just plain incompetence that led us to this moment. It could just be a combination of a dereliction of duty, of just, doing the least, doing the worst, the most mendacious, the most failing upwards type of work. And there was a lot of that happening. Bottom of the barrel, lowering the bar, bare minimum crap. And it wasn't just in the legal cases. It had a lot to do with why we didn't have adequate guarding of our Capitol building. It's why everything just fell apart. But let's go through what is going to happen next. Okay, folks? I think I owe it to my audience to let you know you are in grave danger if you supported this coup, if you attended the coup. No, it doesn't matter that you didn't go in the Capitol building. No, it doesn't matter that you didn't force your way in. The fact that you are on grounds that do not belong to you, that you were restricted from being on, means you forced. Okay? You don't have to physically punch anyone. Mm-hmm. If you're inside of a building you're not supposed to be in, you are committing a crime. And you will be caught by virtue of the fact that in our nation's capital, they got their own whole internet system that they built as a backup after 9/11 to make sure they're not caught off guard. They can't be taken off of the grid. And they captured every phone that came into D.C., every phone that came into that capital, every phone that was in the grounds, which, by the way, you weren't supposed to be in. If you were just watching Rome burn from the grounds of the Capitol and videotaping it and taking selfies outside, you still committed a crime. You still egged on, cheered on those who went inside. You weren't just watching history happen. You were committing a crime. You were part of a felony that included taking down our government. And I'll tell you why that is in a moment when I explain to you what insurrection is. Okay? If you're still stuck in the mindset, or your friends are stuck in the mindset that the people that went to the Capitol, that the people that lied to you about the results of this election, that the people that went and listened to the speakers and that cheered on the folks that walked up to the Capitol, those who broke in, if you still feel like you want to publicly defend on social media with your voice the violence, the insurrection, the violent speech, the insurrectionist speech, if you want to still give aid and comfort to those people that did this and say they shouldn't be seen as traitors, they should be seen as patriots, if you want to use your mouth, your voice, your social media platform to do that, you could be putting yourself, your business, and your future in peril. Let me show you why. First, I want to explain to you why this coup was failed from its inception. Most coups need the backing of the military in order to succeed, because you're going to be taking by force and violence a government against its will. So there's going to be some military might required in order to force people against their will to violate the law, the Constitution, their values, and everything that they stand for as a public official, and force them against their will to do whatever the dictator wants. In this case, Trump never had the backing of the military, despite the fact that he told the Sir story the morning of January 6th about how the military promised him that they wouldn't allow this to happen again in his fake Sir voice. There was no such conversation. There was no such promise. Nobody in the military told Trump that they had his back. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff that are part of the military, that lead our military forces, and who never, ever, 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 if they can avoid it, comment on elections or weigh in on elections or their results. But they did. In a formal letter from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, this is what they said. The American people have trusted the armed forces of the United States to protect them and our Constitution for almost 250 years. And we have done through our history. The U.S. military will obey lawful orders from civilian leadership. They will only follow lawful orders. We will obey lawful orders. That's a distinction they want you to see. They're not going to follow something that violates the Constitution and everything that this country stands for. That's the statement that they're making here. They go on to say, from civilian leadership, support civil authorities to protect lives and property, ensure public safety in accordance with the law, and remain fully committed to protecting and defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They're addressing the militias. They're addressing the 3%ers, the Proud Boys. They're addressing the Oath Keepers. Any of the insurrectors that showed up, whether you were dressed in camo or dressed in a bright orange hat like the Proud Boys were, whatever you were wearing, whatever insignias you had on, they're addressing you. You are now considered on the same level as a domestic terrorist. How do I know that? Biden, the president-elect, said so. They're pledging their allegiance to the peaceful transfer of power that rightfully belongs to President-elect Biden. That is what they are pledging their allegiance to in this letter. The violent riot in Washington, D.C. on January 6th was a direct assault of the U.S. Congress, the Capitol building, and our constitutional process. We mourn the deaths of the two Capitol policemen and others connected to these unprecedented events. We witnessed actions inside the Capitol building that were inconsistent with the rule of law. The rights of freedom of speech and assembly do not give anyone the right to resort to violence, sedition, and insurrection. As service members, we must embody the values and ideals of the nation. We support and defend the Constitution. That is what the military swears an oath to. Not only do they support the Constitution, they defend the Constitution. That means you defend the process in the law set forth, the words in there, and what they tell us to do procedurally in elections. On January 20th, in accordance with the Constitution, confirmed by the states and the courts and certified by Congress, President-elect Biden will be inaugurated and will become our 46th commander-in-chief. And in the paragraph before, notice this part. Any act to disrupt the constitutional process that he just described, of the process of one president passing the power over to the new president. It's a constitutional process. Anyone that disrupts the constitutional process, like they did on January 6th, like they've been trying to do ever since then, is not only going against the traditions and values and their oath, but also it is against the law. Now, to our men and women deployed and at home safeguarding our country, stay ready, keep your eyes on the horizon, and remain focused on the mission. We honor your continued service in the defense of every America. And it's signed by all of these different chiefs of staff. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, chief of staff of the Army, of the Marine Corps, of the Navy, chief of naval operations, of the Air Force, of the space operations, and of the National Guard. Okay?
Wow.
Have you ever seen anything like that before in history?
No.
Anybody making a statement like that from the Joint Chiefs?
No, and it makes it very clear that there's leadership in our country, and when it comes to the military, you know, they put out this statement they felt was necessary, and they're assuring us as citizens of this country and people who live here, they're assuring us of safety and the protection of the Constitution. And so I think that's very important. What I love is our ability to get information. We have no excuse for not knowing things because we can see the letter that went out from these chiefs of staff that explain the situation, and we can get an exact copy of it, you know, online. It's just wonderful resources that we have to be able to be informed.
Now, I went to school. You went to school in a Catholic school, Duke.
Oh, yeah.
When I was growing up, we had to pray every day in school. And maybe that was just because I went to a Catholic school. And we also had to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep.
And a lot of people get really bent out of shape about the whole Pledge of Allegiance things. They're like, you know, they don't want it. You shouldn't have to pledge allegiance, all that.
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't think that it's that bad of an idea, because I translate for people when they go and get their citizenships.
Yep.
And one of the things that they ask you if you're going to become a citizen of these United States is, have you pledged allegiance or do you hold allegiance to any other country? Yes or no? Have you pledged allegiance or do you pledge allegiance to any other government leaders? Any other person, organization? Have you ever been a part of any of these groups? The Communist Party, this, that. They go through a long list of things, right? And if you have ever had any part in those, you have to explain it. If you have ever served under the military in another country, you have to explain it. If you have ever pledged an allegiance or taken an oath to anybody else, you have to explain it. And you may not be allowed to become a citizen because your loyalties are divided. Do you know what that implies? Do you know what that means? Is the duty of every natural-born American citizen that you have a loyalty to your country. That's what that means. It means you, by your birthright, have pledged allegiance to this country, to this Constitution, to these laws, to this form of governance. And for those of you bitching and moaning about how it works or whether or not you like the current leader, you either pledge allegiance to follow the Constitution, the laws of this land, or you will go to jail, directly to jail. Do not collect $200. Go directly to jail. That's the way it always has been. I don't know for why, all of a sudden, people that don't even understand the law or have studied the law or have practiced the law in their whole freaking lives think that they can subvert the law, invent the law, and then tell other people what laws they will obey and which will not. That's just not how things work in this country. And the 20,000 troops standing in our country's capital that are there to enforce that y'all got to get on the same page real quick should be evidence of that fact. If you don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, the live bullets that are in the automatic weapons of those soldiers that are there to protect our Constitution and enforce our laws will let you know some other way. That you cannot subvert the law of this land. That you cannot ignore the Constitution. And that it doesn't matter if a bunch of crooked, treacherous congressmen and women lied to you. They too will have their comeuppance. Just like these lawyers that lied to the president and are now being disbarred and are now being sanctioned and will probably lose their jobs and their careers and their future, so will the lying senators and representatives in our capital. Mark my words. Many of them know their careers are dead. They will live in infamy as the people that helped a failed coup stain our country as the most wicked, evil, and horrible crime against our Constitution and our nation's laws in history since the Civil War. That is how all of these people are going to be remembered. You may not like it. You may not like to hear that message from me, but I will unwaveringly tell you the truth. Not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, what you need to know. Here's what insurrection is. Let me tell you the definition. So let's learn together, shall we?
Oh, yeah.
Insurrection or rebellion, right, is a crime for whoever incites, sets on foot. You know, you can just give a person a nudge, set them down the road of insurrection, and that is enough for you to be charged under this law. Assists. You don't have to be the main creator of the crime of insurrection. You can just assist in some way. I don't go into the Capitol, but maybe I pay for the bus that took you there. Maybe I buy the flexi cuffs that you were going to use to kidnap members of Congress. Maybe I put some money in your Venmo so you can get pizzas after the coup. Assisting. You get it, right? Here's another one. Or directly engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or its laws, like the constitutional procedure of counting electors in the Capitol. Yes, like that kind of a law. Or gives aid or comfort to those who do it. if you give aid or comfort to the people that did it, you can be charged for rebellion or insurrection too. They shall be fined under this title. They shall be imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. And they shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States, not even a dog catcher. You can never have any public office again.
Wow.
Ever. Lots of people are going to find themselves in this situation. Now let's look at what sedition is. Okay? Sedition is a bigger crime, okay? Insurrection is going to apply to the Trump supporters and any other counter-protesters, whether they be BLM or Antifa. And although the vast majority of those people at the sedition, at the coup, were MAGA people, it's just the facts. And nobody knows. Nobody actually has pointed out to you where and who Antifa is more than this reporter. So please do not pee on my head and tell me it's raining that there was full of Antifa in the Capitol, because that's just nonsense. And I think that all of the reports, the research, the investigations, the FBI, and all of that will bear me out in due time. But for now, it doesn't really matter what percentage of people were there from either side. You're all criminals. You're all going to jail. All of you. Period. And sedition is more like what's going to happen to those lying, crooked, seditious senators and representatives of Congress that helped this happen. If you are a part of the military, a veteran, a law enforcement officer, an elected official from a state legislature, from I don't care where, a mayor of some town, if you are an elected official, if you are part of the government apparatus or the apparatus that enforces the laws in this country, you can have a charge of sedition additional to insurrection, because what you did violating your oath to this government, to these laws, and to this Constitution. If you're a lawyer out there, a paralegal, a law clerk, a judge, if you are a Leo of any sort, a military veteran, or any of the people that run the government of this country, and you also attempted the revolutionary coup, you will have charges of sedition on top of your charges for insurrection. And if you are a member of the military, there's a special code. Let's take a look at what it means. It's also called mutiny. And it says any person is subject to this chapter who, with intent to usurp or override lawful military authority, refuses in concert with any other person to obey orders or otherwise do his duty, or creates any violence or disturbance, is guilty of mutiny, with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of lawful civil authority, creates, in concert with any other person, revolt, violence, or other disturbance against that authority, is guilty of sedition. Sedition! Fails to do his utmost to prevent and suppress a mutiny. So, under the law, if you are a person that enforces the law like the military or law enforcement, if you fail to prevent someone you know is planning on sedition and insurrection, if you don't report it to the police, if you don't try to stop it in some way, you are still guilty of sedition. Go on. If you fail to take all reasonable means to inform the superiors of that person, their commissioned officer or commanding officer, or a mutiny or of a mutiny, or let them know about the mutiny or sedition which you know or have reason to believe is taking place, then you are guilty of sedition. And finally, any person who's found guilty of attempted mutiny, sedition, or failure to suppress, or failure to report a mutiny or sedition shall be punished by death.
Whoa.
Or such other punishment as a court-martial may direct. Yikes. Yes, because guess what? Treason, sedition. It is such a heinous, horrible crime. You get killed. They kill you if you are part of a sedition. Now, granted, I'm going to be honest with you because I always am. It's much higher bar to prove sedition. Insurrection, you're going to hear a lot about insurrection. A lot of people are going to get charged with insurrection. A lot of people are going to get charged with insurrection and convicted. That will happen. Sedition, not so much. Because it's harder to prove. It's harder to try in court. And so there are a lot more elements that you have to prove. So I don't expect that. I do expect to see charges of sedition. I don't expect to see a lot of convictions of sedition. And since most of the people that will be charged for sedition are not going to be former members of the military or police or what have you, although there were reportedly some people that were military and police out there,
yep,
and law enforcement, the majority of people are going to be government officials, legislators, members of Congress, etc. So let's take a look at what it means under the U.S. Code for treason, sedition, and subversive activities. Actually, the way that you can violate the law and commit treason, essentially, the way that you can do that is many different ways. You see all the different ways there? Mm-hmm. You can be charged for treason, for misprison or treason. That's a hard one to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Misprison of treason, rebellion or insurrection, seditious conspiracy, advocating overthrow of the government, registration of certain organizations, activities affecting armed forces generally, activities affecting armed forces during a war, recruiting for service against the United States, enlisting to serve against the United States, like enlisting in another army against your army, against your government.
Yep.
That could be as treason or sedition too. Wow. So like if you decide that you are no longer going to back the blue and then start instead attacking the law enforcement of your own government because you pledge allegiance to the Proud Boy patch instead, that it can be sedition. So let's take a look at what those things are. I clicked on those other things, each one of them, and I'm just going to read them to you because I want you to know what clicking on each one of those means. What is treason? Treason is owing allegiance to the United States. Whoever is born in this country, you owe allegiance to the United States as a citizen. I just went through it and explained to you why that is. Why every new citizen has to pledge allegiance, has to pledge an oath. Why do you think they have a swearing-in ceremony for new citizens? Because you must swear allegiance to the laws of this land. And you do, implicitly, by being born here and by being an American. Whoever, owing allegiance to the United States of America, levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States, within this land, or elsewhere in another foreign country, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death, or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but no less than 10,000, and shall be incapable of holding office under the United States forever. You think it's harsh? Because it is one of the worst crimes you could possibly commit. So for all of the people trying to minimize what happened at our Capitol, for everybody that's looking at that and going, oh, well, the cops let them in. The Capitol Police bear the responsibility for not being prepared. Some of those people, they weren't violent. They were just taking selfies inside. Some of the cops gave them the idea that they were going to be protected. Some of them were showing them around. That don't matter. The law is the law is the law is the law. What have I told you, Duke, about being ignorant of a law?
Well, you're still guilty of it. There's no excuse if you don't know about it. I mean, it's just it's pretty common to understand that. And, people talk about being a nation of laws and stuff, but a lot of them don't understand the laws.
Right. In fact, if you come here as an illegal immigrant and you come into this country and you break a law, you can't just say, oh, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that here.
Yeah.
You're still going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
So this next one, misprison of treason. What is misprison of treason? Whoever owing allegiance to the United States of America, that means every citizen, every person that was at the Capitol, and having knowledge of the commission of any treason amongst them against their country, conceals and does not, as soon as may be, disclose that treason that you know about and make it known the same to the president, or to some judge of the United States, or to the governor, or to some judge or justice of a particular state. If you don't tell the authorities right away, in other words, that you know about it, you're also guilty of it. So for the people that were planning it online, by the way, the rumors, if you don't know what the rumors about Parler are, I'm going to give you the skinny. The rumor is that Parler was hacked and somebody created an admin account and was able to back up everything that was put onto Parler, including everything that was erased. And yes, it's true. And yes, the FBI already has it. So for all of you who were knowingly friends with people that were planning insurrection and you didn't tell anybody about it because you wanted to watch their live stream of them breaking down Pelosi's office door and going inside, you could be charged for misprison of treason. And what do you get if you win this stupid prize? Well, you can be charged under this title, and if you are found guilty, you shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 7 years, or both. So not too bad for that one, right?
Yeah, there's no death with that one.
There's no death with that one. The next one is rebellion or insurrection. And a rebellion or insurrection is whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or their laws, or their constitution, or the procedures therein. I added that part because the law of the land, that is the highest order of law, is our Constitution. Or gives any aid or comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both, and shall be incapable of holding office forever. So, if you were part of a lot of those people that were in the insurrection that stormed the Capitol or cheered it on from the sidelines or helped to plan it on Parler or whatever, they could be facing up to 10 years. What do you think about that, Duke?
Well, I'm pretty amazed to, being born in the United States. It's just, and the privilege that you get of being a United States citizen by just being born here is amazing to me, that these laws are so strong, because they just want to lay out there that it is so important to preserve this country and to preserve this Constitution, that you should really know this stuff, and you can't just I'm just a citizen, I can do whatever I want. You can't. You're held to many, many things.
And a lot of people who are upset, and rightfully so, about all of the riots that took place during the summer, during this year, etc., and who are wondering if this is equivalent to what they did. Are those people guilty of the same kinds of crimes? Well, what did I just tell you? I expect to see a lot of charges and convictions of insurrection, but not a lot of charges and convictions of sedition, because they are harder to prove. One thing is harder to prove than another. But both of them are pretty hard to prove as charges go. I mean, you don't hear people being charged with rebellion or insurrection every day. I mean, when was the last time you even did? You don't, right? Because they're pretty hard to prove. Although, when you actually have people go to Congress and talk about, as has been documented, hanging Mike Pence, killing members of Congress, and you actually cause damage on live television to our government and stop the orderly process of the Constitution on TV, it's pretty easy to prove. Mm-hmm. So your question has been answered. The answer is no. These two things are not the same. Seditious conspiracy. If two or more people in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of America conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of these United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, like the one given in the Constitution to count the electors and name the winner on January 6th? Yes, like that. Or by force to prevent, hinder, or even to delay the execution of any law of these United States, or by force to seize, to take, or possess any property of the United States. Like a lectern inside of the Capitol, a piece of mail, a penny, anything you found in that Capitol that did not belong to you. Contrary to the authority of these United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Comprende? Mm-hmm. You didn't have to even attend. You didn't have to even go to Washington, D.C. if you sat somewhere in Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa. It doesn't matter if you were on Parler, on Twitter, whatever, and you were planning an insurrection with someone else or by yourself, you could be charged under the law. Advocating the overthrow of the government. What does that mean? Whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, that means assists, advises, suggests, or teaches the duty, necessity, the desirability, or the propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States or the government of any state within the Union, territory, district, or possession thereof, or the government of any political subdivision therein, by force or violence, or by the assassination of any officer or any such government, or whoever, with the intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such government, prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays any written or printed material advocating, advertising, advising, teaching the duty of, the necessity of, the desirability of, or the propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in these United States by force or violence, or attempts to do so, or whoever organizes or helps or attempts to organize, attempting to organize, even just attempting it, any society, any group or assembly of persons who teaches, who advocates, encourages the overthrow or the destruction of any such government by force or violence, or becomes or is a member of or is affiliated with any such society, group, or assembly of persons, knowing the purpose thereof, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by these United States or any department or agency thereof for the 5 next years following conviction. No government job for you anywhere. If 2 or more persons conspire to commit any offense named in this section, each shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by these United States or any department or agency thereof for the 5 years following their conviction. As used in this section, the terms organizes and organize with respect to any society, group, or assembly of persons includes the recruiting of new members, the forming of new units, like the Proud Boys, and the regrouping or the expansion or of any existing clubs, classes, or other units of the societies, the groups, or assemblies of persons. That's a lot of people.
Yep, that's right.
That applies to a lot of people. Registration of certain organizations. For the purposes of this section, Attorney General means the Attorney General of the United States. Organization means groups, clubs, societies, committees, associations, political parties, or a combination of individuals, whether incorporated or otherwise, but such terms shall not include any corporations, associations, community chest, fund, or foundation organized and operated exclusively for religious, charitable, scientific, literary, or educational purposes. Political activity means any activity for the purpose or aim of which, or one of the purposes or aims of which, is the control by force or overthrow of the government of the United States. Mm-hmm. Many of the groups that went there were constructed with the aim of going there to stop the election, the electors being counted.
That's right.
An organization is engaged in civilian military activity if it gives instructions to or prescribes instructions for its members in the use of firearms or other weapons or any substitute thereof. Any substitute of weapons like
flagpoles with they're big and
spears,
thick, spear at the tip.
also tasers, stun guns.
Yep.
Okay. It receives from any other organization or from any individual instruction in military or naval science, engages in any military or naval maneuvers or activities, engages either with or without arms in drills or parades of military or naval character, engages in any other form of organized activity which, in the opinion of the Attorney General, constitutes preparation for military action. An organization is subject to foreign control if it solicits or accepts financial contributions, loans, or support of any kind, directly or indirectly, from or its affiliates, directly or indirectly, with a foreign government or political subdivision thereof, or an agent, agency, or instrumentality of a foreign government or political subdivision thereof, or a political party in a foreign country, or an international political organization, or its policies or any of them are determined by or at the suggestion of or in collaboration with a foreign government or political subdivision thereof, or an agent, agency, or instrumentality of a foreign government or a political subdivision thereof. So, going on, basically it says if there is any kind of a influence in your organization that is meant to oppose our government and has funding or support or instruction or any kind of affiliation with any foreign government or subdivision of a foreign government, or the formation of a new government like these Civil War idiots we're talking about, then you are qualifying under the registration of certain organizations violation. And I think this might be the last one, I'm not sure. Activities affecting armed forces. Generally, if you are doing anything to impair, interfere with, or influence the loyalty, the morale, or the discipline of the military or naval forces of the United States, you will be guilty of breaking this law. And also of affecting, this applies to whether you're affecting the armed services in wartime or outside of wartime. And finally, recruiting for services against the United States means whoever recruits soldiers or sailors within the United States or any place is subject to the jurisdiction thereof to engage in armed hostility against the United States, like what happened at the Capitol. Whoever opens within the United States or in any other place subject to its jurisdiction a recruiting station for the enlistment of such soldiers or sailors to serve in any manner in armed hostility against the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. Enlisting someone to serve against the United States, whoever enlists or engages within the United States or any place under the jurisdiction thereof, with intent to serve in armed hostility against the United States, shall be fined or imprisoned under this title for no more than 3 years or both. So all of the people that created the Proud Boys, the other militias that you saw represented at this coup attempt, who recruited, who trained, gave instruction, whatever, and helped to, put them on the path to insurrect against our U.S. government, you can be additionally charged. Those can be put on top of the rebellion or insurrection charges, the treason charges, and they likely will be. There's going to be a lot more things you're going to hear coming out about who planned, who organized, and who physically, violently tried to destroy our democracy. And I will be here to kind of break it all down for you and explain what's really going on in the law. As usual, I will try and bring you the truth and explain the law to you and show you from the perspective of a Mexican crossing lines what's really going on so you can make a better informed opinion. And for now, that is all I have. Thank you for being here with us on our first show of the year on a Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Please wear a mask, social distance, stay safe. God bless America.